Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Welcome, friends of the Holy Moment podcast. This is the podcast where we watch movies with you, discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. I'm joined here today. I'm Jeffrey Nichols, first off, and I'm joined here today by my magnificent co-host, Nathaniel Lirio. How are you, Nathaniel Lirio?
I've decided to do an anti-cosplay of Superman. For you see, Superman wears his underwear on the outside of his shorts. So I took it a step further. Not only did I wear my underwear on the inside of my shorts, I, in fact, am not wearing underwear at all. Also, I'm doing well.
Whoa. Well, that's incredible. That's incredible. I am doing sort of a Superman cosplay in that I have glasses, and that was definitely planned.
What I'm hearing is you have underwear on, and I feel like that's a cowardly way to do a podcast.
That is so true. I mean, podcasts, it's about being vulnerable to the audience and expressing yourself, right? And how can I do that if I'm being cowardly and bowing to the system that wants me to wear underwear?
Mm-hmm. Big underwear. It's a real thing. They're out to get you.
Yeah. Well, so I guess we've indicated what movie we're discussing this week, and that is Superman, specifically the new Superman, directed by James Gunn, which is absolutely soaring in the box office. People are really responding to it. What do you feel of that?
Did I get out of this movie and question if I should continue to be a filmmaker? Maybe this movie made me think that because of everyone's response to it and made me feel a little bit of hopeless of what the frick does the audience even want? Do they want to just eat macaroni at the kids' table and draw with crayons? You know, when you go to a restaurant and the table can just be drawn on and they want to draw on that and call that art and then poop in their pants and then smear it on the wall and say, look what I did, mommy and daddy. This is so good. You know, maybe that's how I felt leaving the movie theater. But you know, it was okay.
Nathaniel Lirio coming out swinging with those hot takes.
No, it's not an accurate representation to how I feel. So let me give you just a little bit of backstory. I'm currently re-listening to the book In the Blink of an Eye, which is an editing book by a famous editor. And he was talking about the concept of screening. So, you know, when you edit a movie, you usually screen it to a test audience in different phases. And he said something really interesting. He was like, my favorite type of screening we ever did and has never been replicated was, I don't remember the movie, but they finished it and they screened it in front of a test audience. And they said, don't give us your reviews. If you feel so inclined to leave your review, leave us your phone number and we're going to call you in 3 days. And he said it was his favorite way of doing it because often the audience can point to pain and say, I don't like this scene. The scene is bad. So therefore the producers think, if these people think it's bad, everyone thinks it's going to be bad. Therefore, we're going to make less money. Cut the scene out. But often the audience is just having a knee-jerk reaction, or they aren't not of a fault of their own. They're just not talented, but they're not trained enough to really see the issue. So they're pointing to the pain, but they're not pointing to the causing factor of the pain. He gave an example of you go to a doctor and you say your elbow hurts. You know, a bad doctor is going to operate on your elbow. A good doctor is going to run tests and realize, oh, you have a pinched nerve in your shoulder. The point of the story is, when I got out of the theater, I had a very heated, knee-jerk, immediate reaction. And I think it was because I was feeling all of these immediate pain responses of annoyance with how the film handled certain things. And I think since it's been about 3 weeks since I watched the movie, so it's been a while. You know, usually I watch this a day or two for the podcast. I usually watch it a day or two before the movie, but it's been a while because I watched it in theaters back in Iowa. So having that distance, I think, has helped me to have a little bit of time to ruminate on some of those pain points. But I did want to come out with that first initial anger that I felt leaving the theater, and I got in a heated debate with my brother about art and who gets to determine what is good art and what is bad art. Should there be like a certain level of what is considered good art and who gets to decide that? So a long ramble to say, that was Nathaniel when he left the theater 3 weeks ago. Today's Nathaniel is a little more chill. His immediate reaction is, I'm happy that people are enjoying the Superman. I think the Superman is better than a lot of Marvel and DC superhero movies that we got in the past few years. I think James Gunn put a lot of love and care into it, and I really enjoyed the comic book style. But I ultimately think it fundamentally failed as a story, and that is my frustration that I'm excited to get into later. Okay.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. I've seen this movie 4 times.
I've seen this movie once, and I got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm a huge Superman fan. Just a fan of the character. I've been a fan of the character since I was a wee child. I wanted to be Superman when I grew up. I've had several Superman-themed birthday parties. And so I was going to be sad for this movie. But the reason I saw it 4 times wasn't because I was in love with it. It was actually sort of circumstantial, just seeing it several times with people who hadn't seen it. And that gave me some good perspective on it. I enjoyed it. I think it's an enjoyable movie. I wanted to like it a lot more, but I think that it shows potential for future movies. I think that it was shouldering a lot of responsibilities for setting up a world. And as a result of that, and I also think as a result of perhaps not killing some darlings, the movie felt a bit unfocused, a bit busy. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to explore that more. But first of all, I guess we should go into the movie. Like, okay, what happens in it? We begin with a cold open, very cold open. Antarctica, right? We see Superman. Well, there's a text scroll first that says, all right, this is who Superman is, where he came from. He's just coming off of his first big loss. And then we see him crash into the ice, and he's dragged by Krypto to the Fortress of Solitude. We learn about a message that his Kryptonian parents left with him when they sent him to Earth. It was a message of hope and love, telling him to do Krypton proud, right? It's damaged, though. And so, getting strength from that, as well as being rejuvenated by the yellow sun, he gets back up and he goes back into the fray to fight the Hammer of Baravia. Because Superman has just interrupted a war, or he stopped a war, and that has several political actors very angry. Understandably so. I mean, it makes sense. I'm not, siding with... I don't know what I'm saying.
Jeffrey sides with genocide. Continue.
Yeah, go Baravia, people. No. What were your thoughts on that cold open? Were you a fan of the text scroll?
I thought it was whatever. I thought, with origin stories being done so many times, I thought it was honestly kind of a cowardly way out, because there was, they've done a bunch of publicity for this movie, rightfully so, to make sure it makes lots of money. And I saw James Gunn doing a whole spiel about we all know where Superman and Spider-Man and Batman and Wonder Woman come from. We don't need more origin stories. We've had enough origin stories. We just need to get into the story. And I'm like, okay, you can't say that and then open with a 1.5-minute scrolling text telling us this dude's origin story. Sure, you're doing worse. Instead of showing us through visuals, you're literally just telling us through narration and through text on the screen. So it just felt like the opposite of everything he said. What I think did great was the reboot for the Spider-Man series with Tom Holland. We didn't get any origin story. We didn't see no Uncle Ben being murdered and Peter Parker being bite by the spider. We just got into his story, and we got some exposition, some narration of kind of he's with Aunt May and Uncle Ben died and he's had the powers for so long. But they did a good job of putting us in this world. I feel like Superman did it felt like a cop-out. They didn't show us the origin story like a classic superhero movie, but they didn't also say, you know what, the audience knows origin stories. Let's just skip it. They said, audiences already know origin stories. Let's skip it. Oh, wait, what if they don't? Quick, put up text. So just in case they forgot, at least there's text. I don't know. I didn't like it.
That's fair. I heard James Gunn say that the effect that he wanted to give to the audience was the same effect of someone walking into a comic book store, grabbing an issue off the shelf, and they're starting to read it. Because you're throwing someone into the middle of a story that's somewhat ongoing. And I think it affects that. It is a bit jarring. Now, we are introduced to our Superman. He's pretty beat up, but he's played by David Corenswet. And so I want to take this moment to talk about David Corenswet as Superman. Did you like him?
To give a little bit of background, unlike Jeffrey, I don't have strong opinions about Superman one way or the other. Don't like him, don't dislike him. Don't have a super great history of his previous work, whether it's movies or comic books or animated TV shows. I've seen my fair share of Zack Snyder, some of the older Superman movies, and then some of, the Justice League TV show. All that to be said, I don't have the best vivid picture of or expectations of who Superman should be. With that being said, I thought the actor's portrayal of Superman was good. I thought when he was Clark Kent, he was fun and nerdy, but not pathetic. I thought when he was Superman, he definitely carried a heavy heart and was wanting to do good, but was kind of stopped by the people around him. So I thought his portrayal of Superman was solid. I thought the script and the scenarios he was put in limited his ability to be Superman. But I thought in the decent writing where there were some moments where he could be Superman, like that first scene with Clark Kent and Lois where they're having that fake interview. I really enjoyed those small moments where we got to see him be Clark Kent or Superman. And when he got the opportunity, I thought he did well, but I don't think they gave him a lot of opportunities to shine, in my opinion.
I think I would actually agree with that assessment that he just wasn't given as much time to shine as he ought to have. And what I mean by that is we get him like fighting kaiju and swimming in anti-proton rivers, and I wish we'd had more relational moments, right, between him and the other characters, fleshing out, okay, how does this character feel about him? How does he feel about this character? In fact, that's one of my criticisms of this. They're doing so much when they could have trimmed some down and then prioritized making us really care and know the cast around him. It's like Hawkgirl had very little to do in this movie. And if she had been cut out of the script, there wouldn't have had to have been like as many changes. There wouldn't need to be many changes made.
I think it is unfortunately the sin of what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done. And I'm not dissing the cinematic universe of Marvel in its entirety. I think what it did was phenomenal for it. It did a great job with what it was doing, and it really was groundbreaking. And I like a lot of those movies. But it just created this sense of what fans want. And this kind of the issue I had with my brother in the conversation and what I was kind of ranting at the beginning. It set, I think, unhealthy expectations. It set the expectations of what we care about is movies connecting from thing to thing, setting up plot threads, setting up characters so they can return in other movies so they can connect to TV shows, rather than caring about an emotional payoff. And so I think they had to bear the sins of the cinematic universe and what they set up of the audience is going to expect not just big explosions. We've been doing that for years and years, and big explosions are great. That's fine. I understand. I'm not trying to come in as I'm an indie filmmaker. I went to film school. This should have been about like who is Superman behind the cape and the emotions, and we don't even need to see him fighting. I'm not saying that. This should be a blockbuster, fun action film. I'm all for that, guys. All for it. But when you strip away some of the more emotional moments and you strip away the focus on a character to shove in as many plot points and as many characters, as many Easter eggs, and as many setups for future movies, because that's what audiences expect nowadays. They don't just expect, ooh, I want a famous actor in this movie. Ooh, I want a big explosion. Ooh, I want a cool set piece. They now expect it to supersede the movie. And you cannot supersede your own movie. You're setting yourself up for failure. You need to have the climax of the movie be the climax and the emotional payoffs, the emotional payoffs. You do not need to worry about setting up something for later down the road. Again, you can do it to some degree. I'm fine with trilogies and sequels like that and whatever. That's fine. So you can set up stuff. But if setting it up becomes just as important as the emotional payoff of the movie, then you're absolutely not making a movie. You're making an amusement park of movies. So some people can jump on one ride to go to the next, and there's no payoff in anything. So, sorry, that was another criticism I had.
I think that's a fair assessment there. I was going to go through like the movie beat by beat. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to bounce around based on what I want to talk about, because I'm sure that the audience has seen the movie at this point.
I was going to say, this being one of the more famous movies, or not even famous, but relevant movies, I feel like someone's listened to this. It's more likely they listen to this or have seen this than like On the Waterfront,
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, I think that this movie had a great cast, right? And we're probably going to see pieces of this cast in other DCU media, right? I think that this Green Lantern will be making a cameo in the Green Lantern show that they're making. He's not going to be the main character. There are other Green Lanterns. But I think this movie was trying to establish a world when I wish it had focused more on telling the story of Superman. Speaking of the story of Superman, thematically, it's about him figuring out who he is and reconciling the tension of my parents biologically have sent me to conquer, and I don't want to conquer. I just want to do good. And my human parents have instilled in me, different values. Who am I now? I think that theme would have been executed so much better if we had seen him with his human parents more. And that's what I mean when I say I wish they had trimmed other areas of the movie down so that they could explore more relationships, right? I wish that we'd seen him grapple more with the fact that he had been sent to conquer and build a harem. And I wish that he had processed this some with his human parents more. I think the scene that we got with them together, it was good, but it just didn't feel like enough to me. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, it just felt like an injection of here's some sentimental moments to make you care. It felt like a needle injecting us with, you should care about this, rather than well-crafted placement of storytelling. Since we only did get to see his family once for a very short moment, which I do think, it was pretty well acted. It was whatever. It was fine. We needed it. But I think you felt the scene. You felt the scene. Because like you said, the whole story was about that, was about his tension with the two parents. And so you need this scene with him and his parents. So the fact that you needed it, and the fact that you only get one scene, and it's kind of like in the middle of the movie where like kind of at his all-time low, so the character going through the valley of death, it just felt like a very contrived, okay, we need to put this in here, so here it is, say some sweet things, you're my son, I love you, go on your way. And it just didn't feel like authentic. It didn't feel like led up to or real. It felt like it had to be there, so therefore it was injected into the story. That's how I felt about it. The scene itself wasn't bad, but how they built up to it, I don't think was good.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there are two areas specifically where I think they could have cut things. The anti-proton river.
Yeah.
That whole segment, honestly, I hate it. I mean, it's fine in the movie, but each time I watch it, I'm thinking, I just want to get to the next part, right? Or I wish we weren't spending so much time here. I wish that we were using this time to do exactly that, like build up. That excellent payoff that we get at the end, where he is listening and watching the videos of his human parents. I think James Gunn does needle drops so well, right? His song choices are so unique and memorable. I wish that we'd honestly got more of that on. Okay, the movie's score. James Gunn wanted this to be a score movie versus a soundtrack movie. And here's why I think that detracted a bit, or it didn't detract. I think it wasn't done as effectively as it could have been. And here's why. The John Williams score is iconic. It is the Superman score. And in this score, they're making homage to it a lot. When I hear the homages to the John Williams score, it honestly just makes me want to listen to the John Williams score. And so I wish that they'd either done the John Williams score or tried something completely original. And I think that might be a hot take for Superman fans, but that was my thought. I wish that James Gunn had leaned into the soundtrack side of his filmmaking, because he's great at it. And to relate this back to that last scene where he's surrounded by the videos of his parents, that's so well crafted, and I think it hit emotionally, but it would have hit even more. It would have felt even more earned if we had seen him more with his parents.
I completely agree with that last thought, as far as like we had seen and they crafted a more in-depth relationship with the parents. That scene would have hit more. It was so funny when the robot did his callback, put the memory of the parents on. He loves that one. I genuinely thought they were going to put on the memory of the Kryptonians, because I felt like the whole parent thing was so out of left field. And then when they played it, I was like, oh, that's really sweet. But the fact that like 2 seconds before they played it, I was here thinking like, why are they gonna play the weird Kryptonian dominatrix, civilization people? And then they played his like Kansas family. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. But
Yeah, I kind of like that because I had the same thought. I was thinking, oh, this is sort of one of those robots that don't understand emotions moment.
yeah,
where
that's what I thought
there's
too.
just like a
Yeah.
disconnect. But then it's that, and that surprise, it worked for me.
And it could have been built up that way. It could have been built that way. And so maybe it does make it more memorable because you have that like juxtaposition of you think it's gonna be one thing and then it's another, kind of that whiplash. But I still feel like it could have been led up to better. But I want to talk really quick about your point on the soundtrack and needle drop for a few reasons. One, as I scoot closer to my microphone, I actually disagree about your opinion on the needle drop. I agree with the fact that I
Really?
think he did a great job with needle drops, and it's kind of connected to my holy moment, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But I have been listening to the two songs, like the two main needle drops. I'm a punk rocker, and I think 5 years ago, or in 5 years, or whichever that one,
Yeah.
the one with the Mr. Terrific scene. I think great, awesome choices, quirky, really highlight the atmosphere. And he does a good job of not doing needle drops in the sense of how superhero movies have been doing it, and it's bad. Grant, I mean, he falls a little bit into the trap, but he does better because I feel like it's montage. I've talked about it before, where it's a montage where it's like, okay, we need to train now. We need to show us rescuing these people, but in a fast way. They put on music to do a montage, and it's not always bad. Sometimes it can be good, but often I think it's just kind of like pick something that kind of vaguely thematically correlates, and then just kind of a montage going on so we can quickly get to the next scene. But I like when they develop a whole scene around it. For example, in one of the more recent X-Men movies where Quicksilver is saving everyone. I think this is actually kind of what started the craze, is when Quicksilver puts on his goggles and listens to the song, whatever it is, I don't remember, and he goes through the house and he saves everyone really quick. You know, it's a scene, and the song soaks into the scene. We talked about this when we reviewed Reservoir Dogs. The difference of a scene being over the scene, kind of hovering over it, and the music being in the scene. And I feel like James Gunn did a good job of making his music feel like it was in the scene with the characters. Not perfectly, but much better than I think a lot of other superhero films. I agree with you that I think he does great with needle drops. The point I disagree is, even though he does a better job of making it in the world, I think if he had done more needle drops, more of a soundtrack than a score, it would have gotten gimmicky, and it would have been like every other scene, oh, another popular song, oh, another montage. So I think the fact that he pulled it back and used it at the more emotional or interesting moments, I actually think it was a better choice. Now, your point about the score not being as good as John Williams, the original, I don't really have a lot to say on that. Not super familiar with the original score. I thought the score was perfectly good, probably better than average, still good. But that's my thought. I'm happy he didn't overuse the needle drop.
Yeah. I think so I trust James Gunn's music choices because honestly, his taste in music is very distinctive and indie. It's not really pop music. It's music that most people haven't heard of, and that's why these musics, I think, hit so well in the public consciousness. It's something we've never heard before, but it's really good music. And so I trust that if he had incorporated more soundtrack into this movie, the songs could have been done very well because it's a strength of his.
That could be true. I think ultimately, even if it's a strength and even if you incorporated them well, there's something to be said about a numerous number, the quantity, even if it's all high quality, I feel like the quantity starts to degrade the quality, if that makes any sense.
That's fair.
So I'm
Yeah,
not saying
it
it
makes
couldn't have
sense.
withstood to have one, maybe two more, but I think I've just seen enough movies where I think Thunderbolts was maybe pretty bad about this. I don't remember fully. That's also been a while ago and also a pretty forgettable movie. But just you've seen these superhero movies where it's just like needle drop after needle drop after needle drop, and they're just like background music at this point. And it's just like, you know what's going to make this action scene cooler if we play some AC/DC? And it's just like you've seen it before, and it's nothing innovative. So again, I think he can use it well, but I think just unfortunately because bad needle drops left a bad taste in my mouth. If you use too many, regardless, even tastefully, I think it could degrade the quality of the movie. I could be wrong. I could be.
No, I think that this is, definitely an area that, I'll have to think about it more.
Yeah. Or-
Because I think you bring up some good points.
Just disagreeing, we hate each other. Who knows?
No, that could never happen. Last part especially. But let's talk about more of the characters, because I'd say that the casting's great, but I haven't really talked about the casting much, save for David Cornsweet. you have any favorites? Were there any standouts for you?
Oh, absolutely. I want you to guess who you think my standout was.
Mr. Terrific?
Yeah, I love Mr.
Yeah.
Terrific. He was great. I get why everyone online swooning over him. He was so cool. He was so suave
Yeah.
and fun. I thought the actor did a great job bringing him to life.
Here's the thing about Mr. Terrific that I actually like. Yes, he's the smart guy. Yes, he's the stoic guy. But that's not all there is to him. He's not like a Batman clone. Something I noticed and really appreciated is he's a bit of a scaredy cat, right? He squeals. He like shakes, you know? And I think like Batman's smart, right? Batman's not a nerd. Mr. Terrific, he's a nerd, right? I get the sense that when he was in high school, he was bullied, right? I do. And he is badass. That does not take away from him being badass. But I used to work I did childcare for a bit. And one of the kids, Mr. Terrific makes me think of him. I love him to death. Super smart, super creative, likes to play that stoic type, right? Sort of an edgelord, sort of wants to be the leader of things. And I saw that kid in Mr. Terrific. I saw him growing into that sort of hero. And so so charming, so endearing, and not cookie cutter.
Exactly. And not only not cookie cutter, I think he's people's favorites for a good handful of reasons. He stands out, but the question is why? Is it because he's kind of this like mysterious, suave guy? Is it because he has a pretty cool like ability, a power? Is it because of his design? I think it's all of that. But what I think it also is, I really think he was one of the better actors in the movie. I just feel like our main characters, Lex Luthor, Lois Lane, and Superman, they all kind of had one emotion. And they did a pretty decent job interacting with each other. But I feel like Lex was greedy, insecure, and angry. Okay, whatever, 3 emotions. But he was just those emotions on the top. It's like, oh, like God.
Here's what I'll say. I really liked Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, and I think he gave, oddly enough, a very emotional performance, which I really liked. And when I say that, what I mean is his veins are bulging, his eyes are wet, and you can tell that he's spitting and he hates this man with every fiber of his being. And I love it. I love it, personally.
I'll get more into that when we talk about Lex, but the point is, I'll try and wrap it up quick with this. The point is, I felt like, again, while they had decent characters and were decent actors, I just felt like a lot of their motivations and a lot of who they were on their sleeves. Superman's a good guy who's now guilty that apparently his parents are horrible people. Lois Lane is an independent woman that's trying to promote her career while loving this guy. It's just everything felt on the nose. But with Mr. Terrific, I felt like he had a lot of subtleties. He was interesting to watch because you didn't know what he was about. Hawk Girl was Hawk, Hawk, was a hot girl with anger issues. Green Lantern, who was actually vaguely interesting, but we just didn't quite enough for him, is kind of a douchey guy who has pride issues. But Mr. Terrific was weird. You didn't know what his motivations were. You didn't know why he was doing things. He was suave, but also a little awkward. He was cool, but nerdy. And I feel like the actor played those with subtleties. They weren't right on the nose. And I think, honestly, maybe while people aren't able to pinpoint it, that's one of the reasons I think they enjoyed his character. That sounded a little arrogant to say why people like this is why people like it. They don't know why they like it. I don't want to be like that, but I do think people enjoy his character because he's a little more subtlety, which has to do with the writing, but also has to do with the performance. So,
yeah. Again, stoic, badass, but he whimpers, he squeals, he yells exasperatedly, right? And he doesn't have the garage door figured out.
Does not.
No. But he's just a really fun character. And again, the actor, great job. This is his second time, I think, being in a superhero movie. First time was in one of the X-Men films, and I haven't seen those movies in a very long time. I don't even know if I've seen this original movie, but he was playing a character from the comics that...
is it the evolution guy? Did he play Darwin?
I think so. He's very adaptable.
Yes, he played
to
Darwin.
different circumstances, and in the comics, he is notoriously impossible to kill, right? But apparently in that movie, he's killed off super quickly. I think he's like the only black guy. That was also a point of controversy. And that left him with a very bitter taste in his mouth. And he didn't want to do other superhero movies because he'd been told, hey, like, don't worry, this character is probably going to come back. He never did. But here he had his moment to shine. And I'm really happy for him. And I cannot wait to see more of Mr. Terrific. I think they are coming out with a spin-off show about him.
Hey, that's so
Which
interesting. Wouldn't
yeah.
that be fascinating? Like, it's like movies don't even matter. This is a very broad statement, but like superhero movies aren't even about making. I mean, they want to make money, but they're like, how many people can we introduce to go make shitty shows to make as much money as possible before they get canceled, to make another movie to introduce a bunch more people to make more shitty shows to make as much money as possible? It just, I'm not saying that's like what they're trying to do, but it seems ever so slightly that's what they're doing. It just seems like such a shame. Okay, rant over. Continue.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think I trust James Gunn's intentions in making this movie. I trust him as a filmmaker in that he had a vision and he wanted to execute that vision. And I think he tried to tell a self-contained story. I think that it fails in some respects. And I do think objectively there was that pressure to introduce this DCU to the silver screen, which hadn't been done, right? We've seen an animated show, right, and some TV that has been in universe, but here is the movie-going audience's first time seeing the new DCU, and so yeah, it feels at times more than like telling a story about Superman. He's showing off this world. Like, look at this character. Look at that thing. This is the sort of planet that we're inhabiting, and it hurts the movie. Again, Anti-Proton River should have been cut, I think, or not cut, just trimmed down significantly. And I think the kaiju fight could have been shorter as well. I think that one good thing that they do in the kaiju fight is they show us who Superman is compared to the other superheroes, and also compared to past Supermans, specifically Man of Steel, and that he is absolutely sure that no one is getting harmed, right? His priority is the preservation of innocent life, right? So rather than him carelessly knocking into buildings and, mass casualty events occurring, very blasé, he's making sure the kaiju doesn't hit the buildings, and he's making sure to lower the kaiju down so that it's not crushing anyone, and he saves the squirrel, and he checks on the people that he's saving. And so I think that was a good bit of characterization, but again, I just think it could have been shorter, and that time could have been spent better elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they set up the character decently well, and they throw him in a jail cell, and then he's kind of pathetic the rest of the movie, in my opinion.
That's interesting. I've heard people say that they weren't in love with the first 30 minutes, and then things picked up from that point.
I'm trying to remember, but I mean, the stuff him in the jail cell was fine. I will say, I did not like our protagonist. All three of them, I thought, were different levels of not good, with Lex Luthor being okay and decent at some moments. The weird lady that could turn her hands into scythes, I thought was pretty bad. And then the dumb, there was a clone of you. It's the twin. I hated it. It was the most pointless thing ever. Like, I guess so Superman could have someone he could actually battle, but it just felt like the most obvious twist, and it just felt like, well, we need a twist. Oh, there's a clone of you. And it just felt like the most non-needed thing ever, and the clone felt so stupid and so dumb. And I just felt like Superman, I just felt like he was never fighting. Now, James Gunn, in my opinion, attempted to do what you should do. Because the issue is when you have someone like Superman, he's too powerful to approach a normal story conventions with a movie. How can you have stakes? So I think what James Gunn attempted to do was really, really smart. Blackmail him and make him have an emotional breakdown. I think that shows the human in Superman, which is the interesting thing in Superman. He is a godlike being.
The whole point of the movie.
Yeah. He's a godlike being with human feelings. So we can blackmail him, and we can literally just make him emotionally unstable. So I think that's really fascinating. But I just feel like they never played it correctly. And so Superman in all of his fighting scenes I thought was woefully uninteresting. I thought the whole final fight scene with the girl that could turn her hands into saws and the clone was painful. I think that was the worst part of the movie for me. I thoroughly unenjoyed the fighting in Superman.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think I might disagree with you. I think some of the action was effectively done, like in the baseball field where he realizes, oh, she can take more than one hit, and then he just spins her into the ground several times.
I did find I will say that was funny. I did like that. I agree with you. That was a good moment, but it just felt like it felt pointless. You hate when you watch scenes and you feel like there's no stakes and you feel like nothing's going to happen. I also thought it was, my opinion, I thought it was super cringy. The whole Lex Luthor yelling out commands of like, do 7B, uppercut him, do LT. I thought that was super cringy. I'm sorry. I thought Lex Luthor was cringy. I wish they didn't give him a good enough motivation to hate Superman. I guess the idea is he was jealous. He is the smartest man in the world for centuries. People should be loving him, but they love Superman. But I just feel like they didn't flesh it out enough, so he just came across as like, and a whiny child can be great. That can be interesting as a villain, but he wasn't. He just came across as like a whiny, angry child that I didn't find enjoyable to watch, but I found very grating to watch.
I don't know. I think I might just disagree with you there. I think Nicholas Hoult,
that's okay.
That performance, just the shaking and the crying and the spitting and
why? You have so much. Go do something else. Like, I get it because he's so petty and he's so angry, but it just like, I just hated how much it was like, I hate you, Superman. And Superman's like, dude, I don't even know who you are. Like, why am I fighting you? There was no tension between the two of them. It was Lex Luthor, closeted crybaby, idiot man, Reddit basement dweller being pissed off at Superman. Superman's trying to live his normal life. And it just didn't create for any storytelling tension between the two.
That's okay. So I know that people have seen origin stories over and over and over, and people are kind of tired of them. But that's one thing that could have been solved if this had been an origin story, or at least if it had taken place earlier on in his career as Superman, maybe year one. We get to see these relationships be established. And I think that this movie was missing a lot of that. Things just needed to be established that weren't established and were instead assumed.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I know you have your issues with the movie as well, but I don't. And obviously, I'm not trying to pander to you if these are my real takes on it, but I don't want to be a dick and like, you're the host and I don't want to be steamrolling you and being like, this movie sucked, you're dumb if you liked it, because that's not how I feel. I want to talk about the positive things too. So I just hope you don't feel like, it's you pick the movie and you're the host and I'm over here being like, this sucked, you're dumb.
Not at all. No, I'm liking the back and forth and I want to be challenged.
Good.
Yeah, and I want to challenge too. It's both. Yeah.
Are you one of those crayon drawing, poop wearing diaper people I talked about at the beginning of the movie, Jeffrey? I'm kidding.
Man, I think I'm a little older. Not much.
I
think I just got out of diapers, but I have accidents from time to time.
No, you are a great filmmaker. Yeah, but I guess this whole conversation started about characters. So we got all conjumbled, but I said a lot about my thoughts about the characters. So if you have any other characters you want to talk about, anything specific you want to go into, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I just I do like the character. Okay, I wasn't as big a fan of the engineer, the scythe lady, and the clone. I think the clone thing could have been good. That's the thing. These characters just need to be fleshed out more. We need to spend more time with them because the connection they could have made between Superman and Ultraman is Superman's trying to figure out who he is. And so facing a version of himself could have been interesting, like narratively and allegorically, right, symbolically. But instead, it does feel sort of not quite out of nowhere because we get the hint early on that, oh, they have access to his DNA. That's how they're able to get the Fortress of Solitude to pop up from the ground. But yeah, I just think more time needed to be spent on the things that were central to the themes of the film, and less time on the action and the peripheral stuff, which there needs to be action. Superman comes from Action Comics. Action Comics 1 is when he first appeared. But what makes him interesting is the relational, the personal.
Yeah. It's that hard balance. And this was one of the big questions I had. It's just like, how do you strike a good balance as a filmmaker with people's expectations? Because this is like the kind of the debate I got in with my brother. of being like, he's like, well, hey, if the audience likes it, who are you to say it's bad art or a bad movie? What deems a good movie? Is it the money it makes? Is it the Rotten Tomatoes rating? Is it the average rating of a person? Or is there categorically a way to be like, it doesn't matter if it made $1 billion. It doesn't matter if it has 100% Rotten Tomato. It doesn't matter if 9 people out of 10 you ask, they say it's amazing. You can fundamentally have an answer of if it's good or bad. I don't know the answer for that, but I think I left the movie feeling defeated in the sense of like, man, I'm frustrated that this seems like it lacked in basic storytelling conventions. They lacked in setups and payoffs. They lacked in focus. They lacked in character growth. They lacked in pacing. And yet I feel like I'm the only one that saw that. And so therefore, have I just trained my eye to focus on things that people don't even care about? And so then I got sad about the idea of like, well, maybe we really have stripped away some of the special things that made movies great a while ago, which was, I think, storytelling, but more than that, taking a human emotion, something that we can all go through, and then building a really interesting world and story around it. So it boils down to that kind of like the humanity in it rather than everything else around it, like the sequels and the explosions and the star power. And it just made me sad to think that like, okay, yeah, my brother's right. People like what they like and it makes money. But that doesn't mean that we started liking worse things. If in 10,000 years the best things of art that we produced are crayon drawings and caves, is that maybe a little sad that at one point we were like painting the 16th chapel and carving beautiful things out of stone? Like, yeah, people like now the spaghetti drawings in caves. But that doesn't mean that we didn't have something better at one point. And I'm not trying to be a big naysay and negative person about films and thinking it's all going downhill, because it's not. There's a lot of great, amazing, creative things happening in film in the 25th century, the 21st century that weren't happening 5, 10, 20 years ago. So I'm not all doom and gloom, but I do think there is a certain amount of sadness when I see that people are becoming complacent in what they like.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. I don't think this is a bad movie, personally. I think it's an okay movie. That's the ship that I'm sailing on. Judging from online, people are really resonating with this idea that, kindness is punk rock. And I think that setup and payoff was done very well. Like, I love the song choice at the end. I'm a punk rocker, and how it directly speaks to, you think that everything's beautiful, and he's like, well, yeah, maybe that makes me cool. Maybe that doesn't make me lame. And I think that is in direct response to a trend in modern movies also, where a lot of art has been stripped of the beautiful and the good and the true. And so even if it isn't the most well made, perhaps this movie is tapping into an instinct that hasn't been tapped lately in a lot of movies. What are your thoughts on that idea?
I have 2 thoughts. And I agree with both things you said. And what you said is my biggest disappointment in the movie. I agree with you. For everything I've said up until this point in the podcast of 48 minutes, where I've been ripping on it basically this whole time, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a fine movie. But I think that people are gathering around it like it's a great movie. It's where I'm disappointed. If people gather around like it's a fine movie, that's fine. Yeah, it's great. It's a fine movie. But the fact that people love it so much makes me disappointed. Being like, no, don't love something because it's fine. Because you've been getting such bad movies in the past in this specific genre. Please take this with a grain of salt. I'm talking very specifically about the superhero genre for the most part. Like, we've just been getting kind of garbage for the past 2-3 years. So they get something fine and they say, this is great. Don't settle for the caveman painting. That's my first thought. My second thought is, I will agree with you. I thought they pulled off the notion of it's punk to love, to accept, and to see the goodness in everyone. I thought that was a really cool concept. I thought they pulled it off well. And I'm happy to see that people are connecting with it. And I do agree with you that our society has very much been exploring darker and darker themes and tones in movies. I remember in film history, with Sawyer, our professor, we talked about how he's like, movies can often show the trend of the morality, where a nation is at politically, financially, kind of just like what they're going through. And that's a really interesting concept to me. And I do think there is something about, postmodernism, something about apathy, something about like things don't matter. And these movies are reflecting that in a dark way. So I do think it's cool to have this movie come along and say the opposite. I agree with you. And I'm happy that people resonated with it, even if it wasn't produced in such a way that they could have not even capitalized, but created a better story around that concept. So that's all I had to say. Yes, I agree. I like this theme. I appreciate this more positive light. I'm happy that people are catching on to it. I think that's a good thing for society. I just think it could have been done better. But I think it also shows that society might be so starved for it that they'll even take mediocre. And they're like, yeah, like this is great because we're so starved of something that is representing the wholeness and peace and loving and kindness in society, that even if it's represented in a poor way, we're still gonna love it. So I can appreciate it for that.
I think that the response that this is gotten from I think the reason that this is so popular, that it's going to start a trend. I think we're going to see more movies like it because of it, right? And so maybe we can be grateful to this movie for that, that perhaps filmmakers will be more inclined to look to the light, right? Look to the true, the good, the beautiful, and view that as worthwhile and not naive and uncool.
You know what, that sparked a thought in me. When the first Avengers movie came out, when the first Iron Man movie came out, you think people were probably sitting around being like, this is pretty cool. I wonder if this is going to influence other filmmakers. And then, we kind of capped off at the climax of Endgame. I wonder if people didn't realize the ripple effect in a negative sense that would have in film. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to turn everything you say into a negative thing, but it would be fascinating. It would be fascinating if Superman was the upward tick of this more positive model of filmmaking. But I think that's that's just a slight issue. I think the reason I love film is because you can express everything humanity has to offer through the visual and through the audio. It's one package. You can express everything, all religions, all political beliefs, all senses of morality, and any tone you want. And so it's just interesting when things pop off at the movie theater, the producers say, that made good money, let's replicate it. And then you stop having every aspect of the human condition. I don't want all the really dark, disturbing horror movies, but I also don't want all of the just really hopeful, happy movies. Yeah. We are complicated human beings, and I want complicated movies that represents all facets of it.
Well, the great thing about the new DCU, which is headed by James Gunn, is something he's explicitly wanted is for each movie in this universe to be very director-driven, more so than overarching vision-driven, right? He wants horror movies in the DCU. He wants detective movies in the DCU. He wants... it's not going to be nearly as interconnected as the Marvel films, and he wants it to be tonally distinct. And something else that he is pushing for the DCU, which has not been the case for Marvel, is he wants finished scripts before production starts.
Yeah, I've also heard that, and I think that's a really, really big deal.
And that's why I'm not as doom and gloom about this movie as I think you have been, because again, there's James Gunn, whom I trust as a filmmaker. He's trying to do things the right way, and he has stated that he is wanting to make changes that have needed to be made, right, for this genre, and that gives me hope that this movie got a lot of money, and so studio execs are going to trust James Gunn in being more of an advocate for the filmmaker, for the artist, versus what studio execs think will do well.
Well, maybe I should take a lesson from Superman, and maybe I should be a bit of a punk rocker myself and see the good in this. No, I really do. I do want to have a positive outlook. I more than anyone out there desperately want a superhero film that I can love. I love superhero films. I think I just want, and what I want out of a superhero film is probably very different than what other people want. So I'm happy to hear, at the end of the day, I do think James Gunn is going to do his best. Man, when you're in the seat of a multi-million, if not billion-dollar company, whoever runs DC Comics or whatever, you're gonna have so much pressure. Like I when I work on things and write for things like Lifetime or Hallmark, there's already so much pressure as a writer to be like, oh, actually, you need to do it this way for it to sell well. I can't imagine at his level the pressure, and not just the pressure, but the choices he doesn't get to make. So I do want to extend grace of being like, I really do think he wants to do it properly. And, his filmmaking isn't always going to align with my filmmaking. That's totally fine. That's the great thing about films. I don't need to love every film. I don't want to love every film. But I am happy that it seems like he has care and he has a direction. So I do hope that the future of DC will go well. I will hold out hope as we see what comes out next.
All right, yeah, let's see. What else is there to talk about in regards to, surely there's more. Surely is there, because we've been recording for like 56 minutes.
It is funny.
There has to be more to say.
I know. It's like, that's something I've said it before in the podcast. That's what I love about the podcast. I feel like you and I don't bend to what we feel like. Hey, we care about you, audience. We care about you. Email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. It's a community. But I do feel like it's nice that we say the perspectives and the takes of we care about the movie. It's not just a beat per beat. Well, what did you think about this opening scene? What did you think about this fight scene? What did you think about this scene? It's like our holistic opinions of the movie as a whole, which is also, I know, redundant. But I feel like I'm trying to. I think for me, really, the big thing I walked away, which was what I'm enjoying. I enjoyed that with last week, Steve Jobs. I want to review the movie. That's what we're here for. But we're filmmakers. We're trying to push our bounds as filmmakers. So I like when these movies make me ask a question of like, why am I a filmmaker? What does it mean to be a filmmaker? Why do I make films? Do I make films so they make money? Do I make films so 9 times out of 10 people like them? Do I make films so I can tell a story that I want to tell? So I like walking away from Superman, even though who's in a frustration of being like, well, what is the point of storytelling? And why do we make it? And who gets to decide what is a good movie and a bad movie? So I feel like that was the big thing I want to talk about.
And it's a very valuable and important, I guess that's redundant. It's a very valuable conversation to have. And we should keep on having it.
Well, let me ask you. You saw this movie 4 times. What changed? What was something that you liked at the beginning, and then at the 4th time you didn't like it? And was there anything you didn't like for the first watch, and by the 4th time you liked it? What was the evolution of watching it 4 times like?
So originally this movie was supposed to be called Superman Legacy, and then they dropped the legacy part because they felt that the title Superman was a bit cleaner. And so my expectations were that they would explore his parentage a bit more on both ends. And that was disappointing to see that didn't get much time to really shine. And so perhaps I came into it with expectations that were disappointed for that first viewing. But then second viewing, I could see more what James Gunn was going for and how the scenes were connecting to one another. I think I was able to enjoy it more that second time. Still the same opinions, but I think the more I watched it, the more I really didn't like the proton river, the anti-proton river. I know I've been dogging on it, and it's not a bad scene even. It's fine, but it just does not need to be there. And I'm so angry that that's what took time away from more important matters that like we should have been seeing and witnessing. Just the inefficient use of time. That's the thing that gets me. That really upsets me about the movie.
I'm sure after watching it 4 times, you really get to you start to you feel the moments that drag, and the moments that don't drag it's probably really nice. If something doesn't drag 4 times in a row, it's probably a great scene, but it probably really highlights the things that drag, and that's an interesting way of doing it. Watching a movie a few times and you can pick out the moments that drag, and you can realize what probably needs to be cut. And I agree, the photon thing I thought was not great. But I also have a whole weird thing about. I don't like sci-fi that doesn't take place on Earth. That's just a me issue. I'm not going to critique the movie on that level because that's just a preference thing. I have a really hard time relating. This is weird. It's not characters. I have a hard time relating to the physical geography of non-Earth placed movies. Not all of them, but like sci-fi movies that jump around from new location to new location. Just I have a really hard time grounding myself in. Anyways, that's neither here nor there.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. I really love rewatching movies, and I've said that before in this podcast. And I can say the same for this movie. I enjoyed watching it 4 times. Am I gonna watch it a 5th time? Probably not anytime soon. But this wasn't the kind of movie that I was dreading watching that 4th time.
That's hilarious. We got out of the theater, and my wife and I were like, we're going back and forth about it, and we were saying we didn't love it, but ultimately we both said all we know is it's a movie we wouldn't watch again, let alone 4 times. It's just a little scene that like, I loved it, but also it was like a double-edged sword. because kind of like how we talked earlier about the scene with Superman and his parents. It was a good scene, but it just felt like it was manufactured and needed. I loved that they killed that falafel street vendor dude in front of Superman. I thought that was
Yes.
a great choice. It really drove stakes in. Didn't think they were going to do it. I thought it was great, but it felt very misplaced for the whole rest of the movie surrounding it. Felt very misplaced that they did that, which is a shame.
I don't know. I liked it in a pretty uncomplicated way, I think, because it did show that this character, this villain, was not afraid to do villainous things. There was a fear, a very real fear, that they wouldn't take this movie into those darker spaces because word got out that during one of the test screenings, audiences reacted negatively to a shot where Krypto was punched. And so they took that out of the film. And people said, well, if you're not allowed to have villains punch dogs, then
Why have
I don't know.
villains at all?
We want to see villains be villains, right?
Yeah.
It adds to the stakes. But that scene there, it was good.
I fully agree. I fully agree. It was a good scene. It drove the stakes home. It just felt misplaced compared to everything else I feel like I was watching. Because everything
I
else
think
felt like
that-
it didn't have stakes. I feel like it didn't matter. And then they kill this poor random falafel guy, and I felt bad for him. But then we moved on, and it didn't have any greater implications on the story. And so when the one person you kill and you don't feel the gravity for the rest of the story, that's an issue. Okay, continue.
That's fair. I think it was a good bit of characterization for Lex because we hear Mr. Terrific say about Lex that reckless science, that's the creating pocket dimensions that could erupt into a black hole. That's the kind of reckless science that Lex Luthor specializes in. And we see that on display there where he's playing this game of Russian roulette. And after the second shot, it goes off. And he's like, I wasn't expecting it to end that soon. Playing into he's a genius, but he's also reckless and he's willing to take big risks.
Yeah, I did do a good characterization of Lex. I also loved, speaking of Mr. Terrific, the thing I like to talk about in this movie, I loved the little henchman of Lex Luthor with the big handlebar mustache that clearly, like throughout the movie, got more and more tired of Lex's ego and willingness to put other people in harm's way. So by the end of the movie, he's like, I'm going to shut down this interdimensional rift. And Mr. Terrific shows up and he's like, I can help you. And Mr. Terrific's like, dude, I don't need you. Go away. And I love like you have this whole mini character arc and it culminates with Mr. Terrific being like, I don't even need you. Go away. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, and it's sort of saying, like, okay, you've changed your mind now, but you've been complicit this whole time. You're still going to jail, buddy. You know?
Yeah. You're still a bad person. Don't get redemption now. Yeah. I enjoyed that. Also, speaking of, apparently this is pretty controversial. Or just going around the internet. I, like other people, I hated Krypto. Gosh, get that dog out of that movie. Kick the dog. I wish Lex Luthor kicked that dog. I wish they kept that scene in. Oh, would have been the highlight. Would have been my holy moment, that's for sure.
That's crazy. That's wild. Apparently it's based off of James Gunn's real dog, Ozu, who was a rescue from a really rough situation, hence the behavioral issues. Yeah, I mean, he's a bad dog. What can I say? I didn't love Krypto. I didn't hate him. I think there were moments when he was a bit grating to me.
Yeah.
But
I thought he was going to do something. I thought he was going to be part of the character development. I thought he was going to move the plot forward. The only thing we get is, oh no, the most boring villain ever, the clone, is going to kill Superman, and then Superman whistles, and the clone's like, oh, what's that about? And then Krypto hits the clone. It was like, you could have used the dog as like a character development moment, but no. Besides that, I guess he cares about the dog because he cares about everyone. Dumb dog. Anyways, I do appreciate that. Like the reason he sucks is because his owner, Superman's cousin, sucks. I do think that's fun, but
yeah,
to put the dog in the entire
her
movie. Ugh.
Yeah, I really liked. I think her name is Millie Alcock as Supergirl. They're gonna make a movie with her, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is based off of a comic it's a really good comic. I've read it, and it's actually the guy that wrote that comic is the same guy that wrote a comic called Strange Adventure, in which Mr. Terrific features very prominently, and so that's where most people are familiar with that character.
Okay. All I know is recently in my YouTube feeds, they decided to show me a little comic book clip where apparently Superman was like, dang, I wish I could marry and have sex with my cousin, but it's not allowed on Krypton. I don't know what that's about, but I don't know if you've read that
Comics
comic,
get
Jeffrey.
crazy. Here's what I'll say. I really enjoyed that this movie was paying homage to an era of comics that isn't really represented all that much on the silver screen, right? The Silver Age. It played into the campiness, the wackiness, and I wasn't put off by that. It didn't have to be as grounded in certain respects, as long as the relationships and the more personal story being told was handled well. And I think that we've already talked about our issues with that. But
I will agree with you there. I really liked the Marvel and DC, but specifically DC is whack. It's crazy. Like the comics are crazy with all of the plot twists and the conspiracies and the worlds and the dimensions. It's wild. So I appreciate it was kind of a weird movie, but I also really appreciated the vibrant colors. We were talking about this a few movies back about how a lot of new age cinematography and color science is very gray and very much a blob. But I appreciate this movie really punched with its vibrant, nice colors. So I like that.
yeah. And the physical sets too. James Gunn made it a point to he didn't want to overly rely on green screen. He wanted his actors to feel that they were in the space. And so his use of practical effects, when there were practical effects, I think is admirable.
Yeah. And speaking of practical effects and whatnot, leading up to the movie, everyone was it's actually been really funny. Like, again, I don't follow Superman all that much, but it's been all over like social media, how like there'll be like the base believers in Zack Snyder's Superman. He's like, look how ripped and hot and badass and how he'll just murder people. And look at this pussy, this dumb Superman that's like, I'm going to save a squirrel. And look at my dumb outfit with no muscles. I just think it's so funny. The fact they're pitted against each other so much. The point of the story is I liked his outfit. I thought his costume looked really nice.
I did too. When we first got images, the first official image came out of his outfit, I was very skeptical. It was the scene with the dimensional imp. And so the suit was dirty. He was bent over in a weird way. So it looked unflattering. And I didn't like the collar. But seeing it in action in the movie, it read very well. And I loved it.
Yeah. I thought they did a good job with that. See, we can find good things about the movie, guys.
Yeah. And David Cornsweet, handsome man.
Very handsome man. But Jeffrey, we wouldn't be the Holy Moment podcast if we didn't take a moment to go to Feminist Corner, where we talk about the woman lead, as we do in every Holy Moment podcast episode, obviously. We talked about a lot of people. Really quick, you care or you like and know Superman better than I. What are your thoughts on their depiction of Lois Lane?
I really liked it. I think that she looks the part more than other on-screen Lois Lanes. I think she plays it well. I just think that she wasn't given enough time. And that's my feeling on a lot of these characters. I also really like Jimmy Olsen. Best on-screen Jimmy Olsen that I've seen. And I've heard that they might be doing a spinoff with him too, which he's had some really wacky adventures in the comics. So I'd be excited to see.
He was the newspaper boy guy?
Yeah, is the guy with the reddish hair and the freckles who had.
I did enjoy him. Super random, but I know he's very integral to like the original kind of Superman stuff. But like in the world, he felt random.
No, I think his actor was a very good comedic actor and really elevated the scripts that he was given with the comedic pauses and everything. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Lois Lane. Do you have any particular or controversial thoughts?
I thought she was whatever. Really, really enjoyed that opening scene with her and Clark Kent where she interviews him. Thought that was one of the better scenes in the entire film.
Yeah. It's a 12-minute scene, but it doesn't feel like 12 minutes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that was 12 minutes. Yeah, no, they did a good job with it. I felt like their relationship was boring. Felt like it wasn't fleshed out. I will say they did a good job in the scene with the imp thing, and where Superman just finds out his parents are, weirdo, go conquer this planet. Well, you know what? That's not that weird. Imagine you're like, because the Kryptonians were like awesome, like, right? They were like technologically advanced. They were peaceful. Like, weren't they like I don't, am I wrong?
They're technologically advanced. And I think baked into the premise of him being sent to Earth as the last surviving Kryptonian is the assumption that perhaps things weren't all well on Krypton. The fact that none of them would listen to Krypton's like top scientist, that the planet was going to explode. But I think in a lot of depictions it is almost utopian. In other versions it is dystopian. So in the 80s when they rebooted Superman, something really funny about the author of that Superman run, John Byrne, is he really wanted Superman to be a naturalized citizen of the U.S. And so in his version of the story, they send him on this rocket, and in this rocket, it's like a birthing matrix, right? And as soon as he lands, the spaceship opens, and then he is technically born at that moment, making him a naturalized American citizen.
That's funny.
It's the dumbest thing.
What riders will the hills will die on.
Oh, and the reason that relates to the dystopian thing is because in that version of events, Krypton, they did not have babies a natural way. Instead, they would sort of grow them.
I wish I was grown as a baby. Just kidding. But with that being said, the point I was getting at was, all I was going to say was a joke of like, I guess it does make sense. If you're like a relatively peaceful people, utopian people, you know your planet's going to explode, you know you're going to go extinct. It makes sense if you're like, hey, go have a lot of harems, continue our gene pool. Anyways, that's not the point of the story is. The point is, I was talking about Lois Lane. I thought her character was fine. I thought, I remember what I was talking about. Yeah, I was talking about the GIMP scene where he just finds out that his parents are sending him to the Earth and he doesn't know who he is anymore and he's having an emotional crisis. And Lois Lane's talking to him, and this is the scene where it's like, maybe it's punk rock to be kind. They, at the end of that scene, they hug and they don't kiss, and I thought that was great. That's it. That's all I have to say. I thought that was a nice moment where they show restraint of like, not saying that kiss have to be sexualizing, like you can have a very innocent kiss, but I think it was really a nice emotional moment of he needed the support of a hug rather than a kiss. And I thought that took some restraint on the filmmaker's side. And maybe even had to fight the producers. I could see a world where like, they need to kiss more. But after that, I just feel like they did not have enough one-on-one time. They didn't have like, their chemistry as actors were fine, but they just didn't have enough time together.
Yeah.
So
my thinking, and of course, like, this is an ideal. Ideally, this first movie would be just as focused and just as good. I have more hope for Superman 2 because it won't be about introducing a world, right? I think that we're going to have a smaller cast. I think it is going to be a more personal story, and maybe there all of these issues will be addressed. That's the hope, at least.
Well, when Superman 2 comes out in 3 years, come join us at the Holy Moment Podcast.
That's right. Well, I guess we've talked about pretty much everything is perhaps a bit ambitious.
I feel like we touched upon a lot of the concepts, whether it was brief or in depth. I feel like we did a good job.
Yeah. So, with that being the case, let's move on to our holy moments.
Ooh.
Nathaniel, do you have a holy moment?
I do. This kind of goes back to the needle drops, and I was saying I don't want to spoil it. The song in 5 years ago, I don't remember the specific name of the song. Great use of a needle drop, but specifically the scene where Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane land on the beach following Superman's DNA, trying to find him in the interdimensional drift portal jail thing. And then you get this felt like one of the more unique action scenes, and the vibes with the song and watching Mr. Terrific, how he fought, was so cool. So like they land and then he puts up this portal dome around Lois Lane, and then we see the whole fight through her POV for the most part. It wasn't actually her POV, like the camera was her eyes, but the camera was in the dome with her the whole time, either seeing her reaction or seeing what she was seeing. And I just thought that was really cool. The music made it a whole vibe. He was such a cool, fun character to watch fight, and he fought in such a weird way. And then I loved at the end how he grabbed his ball and twirled in the air around the dome in the most magical ballerina, effortless way. And I just, big fan. That scene had vibes, and as the kids say, aura. He was aura farming. See, I can connect with the kids of this generation. So yeah, that was my favorite scene. It was a lot of fun. If not, a second close scene would be the interview between Lois Lane and Clark Kent, because it was by far the most humanizing, and the moments where they actually got to connect and said some interesting things. And it was a cool way how they did exposition. It wasn't like the best, but it was at least nice that they did exposition in an interesting way through this kind of interview. And then my favorite theme was, the punk rock, what it means. Maybe it's punk rock to be kind. But ultimately, my holy moment was that scene of Mr. Terrific on that beach.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good moment. That's mine is also probably a needle drop. It's the other one at the end. Well, specifically, it's the payoff, the setup and payoff of the punk rocker idea, right? The dimensional imp is fighting outside. Lois Lane, Superman, they have that quiet moment together. Music gets brought up. There's a back and forth, playful. And she's like, "You're not punk rock. You see the beauty in everyone." He's like, "Well, maybe that's the real punk rock." And then fast forward all the way to the end, and the song that they choose is Punk Rocker. And this is him in his element, right? He's listening to the videos of Ma and Pa Kent. And it's executed very well. So that's my holy moment.
Yeah, good holy moment. I know a lot of people really love that scene.
Well, with that being said, I guess we should figure out what movie we are watching next week.
We didn't do this last week, which isn't an issue, but I feel like we should do it for this movie. We should rank it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I'm going to give this a 2 and a 2.3.
We're going to rank this movie higher than you?
No, 2.5, 2.2, 2.7. I'll give it a 2.7.
There you go.
There we go.
Because I'm giving it a 2.5. Because like I said earlier, I've been crapping on it. It's not a horrible movie. It's just okay. And I feel like if that's the statement I'm going to make, I have to give it a 2.5.
Yeah.
Give it a 2.3. You've been defending this movie this whole time. You haven't given... That's the lowest rating I think you've given any movie since we've done this podcast.
That's true. And that's not fair to the movie at all.
Can you think right now, what's the worst movie that we've watched on the podcast so far than this movie? Go.
Super Baby Geniuses 2.
Okay, that was a low blow. My answer was going to be The Big Lebowski, which I think was going to shock a lot of people, but I did not like that movie.
Yeah. No, I think I like that movie. It's not my favorite, but I see the vision, and I think about it still. Whereas like there are other movies I don't think about. Actually, I forgot about that. But now that
sure, just kidding. But I give it a 2.5.
Well, folks, now that we've given our rankings, now is the time for us to find out what movie we're talking about next week. If I can just bring it up.
What do you have left? You have Snakes on the Plane. Snakes on a Plane. Lincoln. And one more. Creature feature. Biopic. We already watched An Oversimplification of Her Beauty, which was Vega's pick. And then we had Wild Card, which I don't remember what you did for Wild Card. No, you did Paper Moon for Wild Card. And
That's
then
right.
and then Schwarzenegger. We have Total Recall. What a good brain. So it could be Total Recall, Snakes on a Plane, or Lincoln. Ooh, I'm good with it. I'm good with any of those movies.
Yeah, me too. I think they're all good options.
Maybe I take Snakes on a Plane, because we already did a biopic. We did a serious biopic last week, and then this week we did a big fun action movie. So I feel like the most different of all of them could be Snakes on a Plane. So that'll be my vote.
Yeah, my wheel isn't working, so I'm going to do a random number generator. So 1 will be Snakes on a Plane. 2 will be Lincoln. 3 will be Total Recall. And what's the other one? Snakes.
That's it, I think.
Recall.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, so it's just 3.
I think so. Because you've already done An Oversimplification of Her Beauty. We already did Paper Moon. And then we did Life is Beautiful.
All right, Snakes on a Plane.
Yes. Man, I've had a good run this season. It's been every movie, every time that I've won it, I think, for the most part. Heck yeah. That's sweet. I'm super excited to watch this movie. Because I know originally it was Gremlins, but I'm happy you changed it.
Me too. Yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see Samuel L. Jackson and Snakes and Plane, presumably.
Well, I'm just excited you get to host 2 movies in a row because this new system we have, it's always every other. But because we decided to do Superman, you get to do 2 in a row, which reminds me when we first started the Holy Moment podcast, when we would not only randomly pick the movie, but we'd randomly pick the host. And the first like 4 episodes were me. Like Jeffrey didn't host an episode to like episode 8 or something because like Vega and I both had a ton of movies back to back. Anyways, happy you're hosting.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to explore this more. Anyhow, if you want to find us, we are on Twitter. We are on. No, we're not on Twitter. That's the one place we're not on.
I thought you said quitter. Like, what is that even?
We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok, folks. We also have an email. Email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. Send us mail, please. We want to read it out loud so that we can reward you for being an engaged fan. And with that being said, tune in next time. We love you. We miss you. We'll talk to you next week.
Stay punk rock.
'Cause I'm a punk rocker, yes I am.